Hi, we are going to continue to talk about editors used in Linux here. We have two types of editor. One is the text mode editor here. And we have VI, Emacs, Pico, Nano. The most widely used one is VI. The second widely used one is Emacs here. My suggestion here, use VI. This textbook, they talk about VI. They don't talk about Emacs, Pico, Nano for different purpose here. And in addition to the text editor, we also have a GUI editor here. Here are your GUI editor here. Emacs can be both command line interface editor here, called text editor, also GUI editor here. And Gedit, that's your GUI. And Cat, that's your GUI editor. And Edit here. Well, I have intention to show you VI, Emacs. Last time I have already showed it to you. So we're going to show you Pico, Nano, and Gedit here. Well, I'm not going to show you the last two here. Okay. So let's take a look for your Pico here. Pico, they explain to you like editors but omit many of its advanced features here. So it's a simple version of Emacs. That's called Pico. Smaller stuff here. Pico, Emacs here. We'll see what is the Pico here.
To briefly look at the Pico text editor as another text-based option for editing files. So this again has the advantage that it is completely text-based, and it's going to be something that is feasible to use over a poor internet connection that is not necessarily suitable for a graphical interface. And we start this up with Pico, the command for the text editor, and we provide the option, the name of the file that we'd like to edit. So we have a sample Python file here. So we start this up, and once it has started up, you will see the contents of the file. So this is a little Python program that computes pi using Archimedes method. And you can navigate using the arrow keys. So I'm up and down arrow, and then left and right. And then anytime I want to enter text, I can just go ahead and start typing that and get rid of it in this case, because that's not real Python code, obviously. Now the nice thing about this, maybe compared to VI, is that instead of having to remember absolutely everything about how it works in terms of key commands, there is this very rudimentary menu down at the bottom of the screen. So you can see options for get, help, exit, etc. If you're wondering about this little caret character kind of pointing upwards, that's representing that you should press Control. So for example, if I wanted to exit, that would be Control X, or if I wanted to write out or save the file, that would be Control O. So I'll do Control O here, and it will ask file of name to write, and the default is the one that I've already opened. I can go ahead and hit enter, and I get the message back that it wrote 27 lines. So some people feel a little more comfortable with this, that they can always do a few basic things and have reminders of that down at the bottom of the screen. If I wanted to go to a particular line in the file, maybe I knew that I wanted to get to line 21 because the Python interpreter told me there was a mistake there, I would do Control _ and it would ask me for the line number to go to and the optional column number. So I tell it I want to go to line 21. Now I'm on line 21, and I could do whatever I needed to do to look at that piece of code, decide if there's a mistake, fix it, etc. So go ahead and exit from this, and also look at our other little C++ test program. So again, you notice that it does this highlighting because it understands C++ and Python code, so different things are different colors depending on their significance in the program. But this is another option that you may want to consider. In general, I would say that few programmers use Pico as their main editing tool, but it is handy to have some experience with a text-based editor, if you are in that situation where you have, kind of a bad internet connection or something, it's going to be much more responsive than a graphical interface running a program on the Linux machine but displaying the graphics on your local machine.
Yeah, that's a very good tutorial here you have here to show you the using the Pico under Python and under C++, different coding, and that's very good here. So we can see here choosing an editor here, as the speaker mentioned to you that mainly, give you some kind of experience about text mode editor used under the Linux environment here. So it's telling you that here it's not mainly used with VI or Emacs. VI people use for command line, that's all text mode, and Emacs for video. The GUI version here. Now we're going to take a look for this Nano here. Nano here, this editor here, a clone of Pico here that adds extra feature here. So you have Pico, some features here. You have Nano, more feature here. You have Emacs here. That's all the fancy feature you have here. So Nano here, Pico, Nano, Emacs here.
Nano, the text editor. Nano is not by default installed on our server, so we need to install it first. And it's quite simple, there's no dependencies, so we'll go down and download that Nano package from the server and then install, and then we can use this text editor. So it's a very basic text editor. Since it's not already installed, what could you use as an alternative? Vi or Vim is usually installed in a very basic form. Another more advanced, and it's significantly more advanced than Nano. Emacs is another alternative. But let's just go through Nano. It's quite a simple text editor. We can write we can edit, as in if you use Windows, say Notepad. Right, so a couple of the options. Down the bottom is the menu. Okay, remember we have no mouse, so the menu or at least key menu items are listed down the bottom, where the hat character, which in my keyboard is Shift-6, is this character, represents the control key. So Control-G gets help. Control-G gets help, and then you can read through the hat or the character, and you can read through and see all the different options, not just listed in the menu, but many other features that Nano provides. And to get out of the help, Control-X, so we're down the bottom, exit, Control-X, and we're back to our text editor mode. Just a couple of options. To copy and paste, or to cut and paste really, Control-K to cut. Cuts the entire line. Control-U to uncut. And we can keep essentially pasting. And that's per line. There are some other options, but that's a quick way to copy and paste or cut and paste. Control-K, Control-U. To move your cursor to the end of the line, Control-E to the end of the line, and back to the start, Control-A. Of course, we can move up and down with our keypad, but Control-E to the end, Control-A to the start of the line. And Control-E, Control-A are also available in other software, including Bash on the terminal when you're entering commands. Right, we want to save a file, so we actually write it to disk. So Control-O in the menu writes the file to disk. So Control-O will save. It will ask you the file name to write. That is, what name do you want to give the file? Example.txt, and I just press enter, and it wrote 6 lines, so it saves 6 lines to disk. And if we want to exit, Control-X, because it's saved, it's not going to prompt me, it's immediately exits. We can open that file again, we can pass in the file name as a parameter, and Nano will open up that file. and add another line. And if we exit without saving, Control X, it asks us, do you want to save the modified buffer, meaning that the file has been modified since the last time you saved it. If you say yes, we'll save it. If no, then you'll lose those changes. So we'll say Y for yes, and now it asks you, well, what do you want to name the file? And we don't want to change the name, we want to overwrite, so simply press enter, because it's already example.txt, and now we exit. So that's a quick way to exit, is just a control.
Yeah, this is a very good tutorial here. They show you the nano, how to use it here with some example. That's very cool. They show you the manual here. You type in the manual here. Yeah, then you can see all the commands. You don't need to memorize. No one's memorizing or trying to memorize those commands. That's not how the way you learn Linux here. You type in the command a couple of times here. Then you realize, oh, okay, you remember the command here. Now let's do a review to talk about VI, talking about gedit here and Emacs here. That's a review comparing those. The VI, VIM, remember, gedit here and nano here.
Which are gedit, nano, and vim. Two of those three are not installed by default. The first one, gedit, we can simply install by doing sudo apt-get install gedit. The second one can be installed the same way. And then if we type nano, it should be installed by default. To get out of nano, you type Control X. That should bring you back to the terminal. So now that we have the three editors installed, I'm just going to be giving a brief overview of what each one looks like, how to use it, and just some basic functionality. I'm going to be going in order of difficulty. This is the way I perceive the difficulty to be for someone who has never used any of the editors before. So the easiest one to start with is gedit. So we're going to type gedit, and then an optional thing you can type is ampersand. What this ampersand does is it makes it a background process. Gedit is a graphical text editor, so it's going to be opened up separately from our terminal and displayed to us in a separate window. If we wanted to go back and use this terminal, we couldn't until the gedit application has been closed. However, if we append an ampersand to our command, it'll cause that process to go into the background and it'll give us control back of our terminal. So I recommend doing this, and anytime you're running a command from the command line that's going to be opening up a separate window or running a separate application, typically you want to append an ampersand to that command so that it doesn't take away control from the terminal. So I'm in gedit, and it looks like pretty much like a standard text editor. If you've used anything like Notepad or WordPad, we wanted to type anything when you start typing, and it's pretty easy. You got your menu bar up here, big save button. A couple other things you can configure in here is you can set the tab width if you want to use spaces instead of tabs. You can also specify the file. However, if you have a file saved by the relative extension, so for a Python file it's going to be .py, or just a simple text file, it'll be .txt. You can configure it in there, or you can just save it with the correct extension. You also can get things like text wrapping. You can have the line numbers displayed on the left side. You see right here, other simple features. So I think this one's the easiest because if you've ever used anything like Notepad, you're familiar with this sort of interface. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it. If you don't want to learn anything new, at least at the start, and you don't want to use some of the other text editors we're going to be using in a little bit, this is a great place to start, and it'll get you going for the introductory videos. The next two that I'm going to show you are purely in the command line. Now there are other graphical applications that have been built for these editors. I know there's like a graphical interface for Vim, and I know a lot of development tools have Vim support, or they do some sort of Vim integration. There's definitely other ways that you can use these types of text editors, but I'm going to be doing the most pure vanilla way of actually interacting with them, and from there you can branch off whatever direction you want. So the second one is Nano, and this is installed by default on all Linux machines, and this is also a very, in my opinion, pretty simple one to use. However, since it's on the command line, it's a little bit harder. If you want to start editing, you can immediately just start typing. When you want to save, you're going to do Control X. It'll give you the option to either save, you type yes or no. We're going to do no because it doesn't do anything. it'll immediately back out. So Nano is pretty simple as well. There's a man page for it, and you can read through some of the options and how things work. Along with the standard man page for Nano, we also have what's called a RC file. For Nano, it's called the Nano RC file. And that just contains a lot of extra configurations that you can do. As we saw in gedit, you can do things like set the tab width, you can set line numbers, do text wrapping, stuff like that. If we wanted to do that in Nano, we would have to edit the Nano RC file. So let's man the Nano RC, and this is going to give us a lot of the options that are available. And you can just scroll through here and see all the different types of values that you can set. You also have things like syntax highlighting. You can rebind keys so that shortcuts are triggered by different keys rather than the default. So there's a lot of functionality that can be configured in the Nano RC. gedit, you're not going to get exposed to a lot beyond what is in the graphical interface. But in Nano, you have a single configuration file where you can define your configuration yourself. So besides gedit and Nano, the third text editor that I recommend you try out in Linux is called Vim. Vi is the original version of this, but there's a text editor called Vim, which stands for VI Improved, that makes it, in my opinion, a lot easier to use. It's really not that different, but there's just some subtle things that prevent you from having to, reach up and press the escape key a bunch of times, or there's support for plugins that'll give you a lot more functionality, like syntax highlighting. Really, just a lot more functionality. So if we type Vim, we're presented with this, and if you wanted to start typing immediately, if you just started matching different keys, nothing's going to happen. So for Vim, there's a lot of tutorials online. I'm going to link a couple in the description of how to start using this. But of all the three editors that I've shown you so far, I definitely recommend Vim for if you want to actually start investing time into Linux and to start getting comfortable using the command line, really just honing in your Linux skills.
Yeah, I'm going to stop here since we already see the VI. So the Vim here, just improved version here.
I'm going to link a couple in the description of how to start using this. But of all the three editors that I've shown you so far, I definitely recommend Vim for if you want to actually start investing time into Linux and to start getting comfortable using the command line, really just honing in your Linux skills, making them better.
Yeah, I use Vim here. I use VI, and this gentleman suggests you to use Vim here.
Is because the developer community, people that write Vim plugins, there's a ton of people who are invested in using Vim, and so as new languages come out, as new projects get developed, it doesn't take long for there to be Vim support. Nano and gedit, they don't have nearly as much support or nearly as many plugins simply because Vim is the kind of...
Yeah, that's a very good suggestion here, using the Vim here.
If you just wanted to create a simple text file, you would type I, because that takes you into insert mode. The default mode just allows you to move around and use some other key commands to delete things, copy things, paste things. But to actually insert text and modify text, you have to go into insert mode. So you type I.
Let's see here a little bit here. Go back a little bit here. Vim here.
Plugins that'll give you a lot more functionality, like syntax is in the graphical interface. But in Nano, you have the third text editor that I recommend you try out in Linux is called Vim. Vi is the original version of this, but there's a text editor called Vim, which stands for VI.
Yeah, I'm trying to show you something.
Makes it, in my opinion, a lot easier to use. It's really not that different, but there's just some subtle things that prevent you from having to, reach up and press the escape key a bunch of times, or there's support for plugins that'll give you a lot more functionality, like syntax highlighting. Really, just a lot more functionality. So if we type Vim.
See here? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to show you to. Yeah, engineer tester, they tends to talk very fast. That's, you see this version here, 7416989 by this gentleman here. So organization becomes registration Vim users here. They just show you that's the version here, the Vim version here, and that's from which organization here. They show the version. This is very important. If you are using a Vim version here, I'm using a different version here. They are not going to be exactly correct here. Distribution version here, pay attention to that. And yeah, it's great that we learn the VI and the Vim, the difference between this one and this one here. Let's go back to our textbook. Our textbook here, that's the editor here. That's the most important for this chapter here. Talking about Nano here, we saw Nano here. Talking about Pico here, and they describe how to use it here. Yeah, the sample here, press how to move here, and choose your change to nano here and VI here, editing file with VI. That's most important. I still recommend you to use VI. So VI mode, command mode, execute EX mode here, insert mode here. They show you the VI text editing procedure here. As with nano here, you do a comparison. People always like to do that here, but you don't have to here, as long as you know one, like a column WQ here, write and quit here. You know one editor, that's good enough here. You change from VI, you can see the author also suggests you to use the VI. They keep talking about VI here. And how to use the VI text editor. That's a simple HTML file here. How can you use it here? That's the end of this chapter. That's all I want to talk about this chapter. This chapter talking the most important editor is VI or Emacs here. If you don't know VI, you don't know Emacs, you can do nothing under the Linux environment world here. So spend some time and learn how to do VI. That's all I want to talk about. Bye.